After previewing the AFC on yesterday's episode, it's time to hit the NFC. Which teams are vying for the spot at the top of the mountain, and which drafted prospects are going to help prepare their team to the top of that mountain? Are the Eagles still the creme de la creme? Yes, and we're going to tell you next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On? Let's get locked in. Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I am a national scout over with the Draft Network, as well as the host of the Locked On Clemson Football Podcast. Guys, thank y'all for tapping in with us and making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Thank you for being the family, but thank you for being our everydayers, guys. But of course, I got to kick it over to my partner in crime, my brother, Mr. LSU, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man, and 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, man. So you know why we're here, right? We are here to bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL draft 24/7, 365. Like we say, man, this dynamic duo doesn't stop, and it is NFL week. And with it being NFL week, man, yesterday we dropped you the AFC playoff predictor, right? Who we think is going to AFC championship. Today, we're dropping the NFC playoff predictor, right? Who's going to make the playoffs? We're going to talk about who's going to win the NFC East, West, North, and South. And then we're going to give you the conference championship game. And then we're going to give you the Super Bowl champions, right? So we're predicting it all, man. We're putting it all on wax, letting you know how we feel, man, in regards to what, right? These teams, they've had a couple good drafts, right? And we know that the draft makes a difference. Your team starts with the draft, man. You want good players, you better draft them, right? At the end of the day, man. So DP, let's get this thing started with our title sponsor, and then let's jump into this NFC East conversation.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL Draft has been brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Keith, NFC East and West. Let's kick it off with the East, right? Those Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Commanders, the Giants. Who do you envision and that you predict to win this physical division?
Right. So DP, there's a stat going around, right? That I think it's been 20 years. I believe I made my years might be a little bit off, but I believe that's what I heard. Somewhere close to about 15, 20 years since they've had a repeat champion in this division, right? So this leaves you with, obviously, you know, you have the Cowboys, the Commanders, you have the Giants, you have the Eagles. The Eagles obviously won it by far last year, right? Not by far, but you know, they were the dominant team. They made it to the Super Bowl, right? They were the best team in the NFC East. Now the question is, do you go with the mathematical trend, right, and say, you know what, somebody's not going to repeat again? But I'm not, DP. I'm going with the Eagles, man. Jalen Hurts. You know, I think he's just there, man. What this team looks like offensively is on the roster, right? Like I think it's still loaded. We talked about that wide receiver 3 position. I would have really liked to see them address that. They didn't. We'll see how that goes. But DP, the other side of the football is this, and this is why the draft matters, right? And this is why we're still doing this podcast, because people are going to talk about the losses, right, that the Philadelphia Eagles had, right? They lost with Javon Hargrave, but I'm okay with placing Javon Hargrave with Jalen Carter, right? Like that
Right.
makes sense to me. Then the year before you drafted Jordan Davis, right? Then I believe they lost TJ Edwards and another linebacker. I believe they lost 2 linebackers this past offseason. But DP, guess what? You lose him, and then you go ahead and you insert Nakobe Dean, who you drafted in the 2022 draft, right? And now he's going to be that guy roaming the middle for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I have one. We can keep going, right? Like defensively, we can keep going, right? The cornerback position, the addition, Eli Ricks making this 53-man roster, right? Keely Regal being out there. And then you look at the safety position, them not being able to return Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was their playmaker, but they drafted rookie Sidney Brown. So I'm going back with the Philadelphia Eagles again, DP, as the NFC East champions.
Nah, Keith, and you were correct on at the beginning. You said that we haven't seen a back-to-back champion in the last 20 years? Yeah, Keith. Going back to 2003, 2004, and the last team to do it was the Philadelphia Eagles. Ever since then, they've been kind of just replacing each other year after year, year after year. But the Eagles, I'm with you. I'm picking the Eagles as well. I think the Eagles are going to win this division again. I do think it's going to be like I think it's going to be tough for them. I think the Commanders offensively has more talent at quarterback, right? Than what was it, Taylor Heineke? I think last year.
Yeah, Taylor Heineke.
So Heineke at quarterback, he was solid, but technically and from a talent standpoint, Sam Howell's an upgrade. So you think about that. They can run the ball. They have their defensive line fully healthy this year, right now coming into the season with Chase Young and all those guys. So they're going to still pose a threat. We know that those Giants, if Daniel Jones can play the way he played in the preseason, him and Darren Waller, that offense will look so much more improved, especially when you put Saquon Barkley back there now after he's gotten, some money, not a long-term deal, but he's gotten something to make him play this season. And of course, man, the Dallas Cowboys, right? Them boys, like they're still going to be a competitor and going to be like the biggest arch nemesis to the Eagles. But I think talent-wise, man, Jalen Hurts is coming trying to run for an MVP season this year, and I think losing that Super Bowl the way they did, after they dominated the Chiefs, especially early in that game. And they lost that game themselves by not, adjusting and making the right moves. I think that's going to leave a bad taste in their mouth. And I think this team is going to be ready to go. Nick Sirianni is one of those energy coaches, and I feel like their energy is going to be on 10 all season long.
Yeah, they definitely gonna be angry, right? And they're trying to go back and get it. Jalen Hurts has that attitude. I know that people talk about a Super Bowl hangover. This is just not a team that I foresee that with Jalen Hurts being the leader of this football team. But DP, that's the East Coast, right? Let's take it to the NFC.
Whoa. Let me ask you something real quick, Keith.
What's up?
You said Jalen Carter. I was gonna bring Carter up too. Do you think Carter will have we all know he's gonna be impactful. Do you think he can be a defensive rookie of the year candidate in this defense, depending on, they rotate a lot and stuff like that? Do you think he'll get enough run to win that award?
Yeah, we always talk about situations, right? We talk about putting players in good situations. And he's in a good situation. He has a lot of veterans around him. I think they have a deep enough rotation to where he can stay, while his gas tank is not going to run on empty, right? I think he's going to get his 50, 60 snaps, which is going to be more than enough for him to be, to be able to contribute and be the defensive rookie of the year, right? But I think he's also going to get some time off, right? They'll be able to run him off, rotate that defensive line so he can stay fresh and you get maximum efforts out of Jalen Carter. So I definitely think that would be a opportunity. With DP, let's talk about this NFC West, right? Man, we're talking about one of the team that stole the entire offseason with the San Francisco 49ers. Then you have the Seattle Seahawks. You have the Los Angeles Rams, right? And I'm forgetting one. I don't know who's slipping my mind with the NFC West.
Cardinals.
Yeah, and that's why the Arizona Cardinals. And so, DP, who is going to win the NFC West?
Man, I'm telling you right now, Keith, I'm going out on the limb because I'm going to the West Coast and I'm not going to Cali. I'm going to Seattle. I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to win this division. I think Geno Smith is primed and poised. I think that they're ready to go. I think they're three-headed monster, four-headed monster, whatever they got in that backfield, they got a lot of running backs. They can run the ball. Offensive line is improved. I think defensively with Mike Morris from Michigan that they drafted this year. Of course, our guy Derek Hall that they added to this defense. Boy Mafe last year, Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon. This defense from a secondary level to from the secondary to the second level to the first level of the defense. I think this is going to be a much better defense than we saw last year. Jackson Smith and Jigba, once he gets healthy after the wrist issue. Yeah, Keith, I'm going with them Seahawks, man.
Yeah, so I'm right with you. I thought I was going to have the surprise pick. I thought I was going to have the pick that everybody's going to say, what? Because we know the 49ers, right? They're not even, the NFC West is kind of like that's locked up. It's more about, are they going to go to the Super Bowl, right? Like that, because everybody's, almost wrote their name in pencil for the NFC Championship game. And I don't know about that yet. But I think it's the Seattle Seahawks too, man. And I believe these two teams played each other in the playoffs. I think they played in the first round of the playoffs. Geno Smith, and he came up just short, right? Like it was a pretty good game, but talent at the end of the day, it just it overrided what the Seahawks had, the San Francisco 49ers talent. And I'll continue that and say this. I think that the Seattle Seahawks got better, right? You talked about the defensive side of the football. Let's talk about the offensive side, right? You're talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba now alternating with Tyler Lockett in that slot position. But then they still also have, tight end Noah Fant, right? One of the most athletic tight ends that we've seen come out the draft in the past few years. So, and I say this, even Geno Smith being a year older and a year more understanding like what success looks like, right? So now he can compound, right? We talk about compound interest in stocks, right?
Yeah.
He can compound these performances or these seasons together. And I think they're ready to roll. And I think the Seattle Seahawks are right where they want to be, where everybody's talking about the San Francisco 49ers, and we're just going to go out there high energy and win some football games, right? And I would say this lastly, DP, this defensive back, like the secondary, it's turning into a real strength for them, right? Because still having, when Jamal Adams able to return, right? Quandre Diggs, Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant gets kicked to the safety position also. So now you have 3 safeties, right? And then you still have their first round pick, Devin Witherspoon. So this team is locked and loaded, and this team is definitely ready to go. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do.
I am too. And I think, some people will probably look at us like, man, y'all crazy. The Niners. But Keith, when teams are close or even, Bobby, exactly. He's back to be the man in the middle of that defense and be the quarterback of that defense. When teams are close, I think these two rosters are a lot closer than people want to give them credit for. And when they are close like that, Keith, then what do we typically lean to? The better quarterback. I think the better quarterback is hands down Geno Smith.
Yep, I agree. So let's keep this thing moving, man. We did the East Coast, we did the West Coast. Now we have to do North and South. Coming up next, man, we know DP is in Carolina Panthers region. I'm in New Orleans Saints region, man. So let's talk about who do we think is going to win the NFC South, and then we also have the NFC North without Aaron Rodgers. So coming up next, we are picking those division winners.
Guys, I shave for 3 people: me, my wife, and my son. Guys, when I don't know about you, but when I do have a nice clean cut, nice shape up, nice shave, right? When I have that, I feel younger, I feel cleaner, more attractive, and look good looking. And I also feel more confident. But no matter why you shave, Harry's has you covered for the best shave of your life at a price that you will love. Guys, right now, I can promise you, you're going to love this value because I got the starter kit. That's the kit I got. That's the set I got. The starter kit, the starter set. It's a $13 value for just $3 at harrys.com/NFL. It comes with a 5-blade German engineered razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for whenever you need to hit the road. You can also schedule deliveries for refills as low as $2, half of the price of what you pay for other blades. So at the end of the day, you're going to love the creams, the washes, the lotions that will keep your skin looking and feeling healthy and hydrated. Get the best shave of this fall for yourself with Harry's razors and skin products. Get the $13 starter set for just $3 at harrys.com/NFL. Down south is where we land, Keith. We visited the East and the West. We down south now. The NFC South, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, the Saints. Man, Keith, who is your pick? Who is your favorite to come out of the NFC South in 2023?
Who that said they're going to beat them Saints, man? They were one quarterback. I thought Jameis Winston was going to get the job done last year, just being a solid quarterback, because I thought this was a solid football team. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out. It is what it is, right? Jameis Winston has looked good in the preseason. But Derek Carr is exactly what the Saints needed, right? Just a veteran quarterback that has played at a high level at times in his career, and the rest of this team is loaded, man. And I was critical of their draft, right? But I think that their draft pieces are going to contribute. I just didn't necessarily love the players that they selected at every situation, right? And I'm gonna mention 2 in particular, and that's Isaiah Foskey and that's Brian Bresee. Those guys, I believe, are going to contribute at a high level. They're going to be they're going to be productive, I believe. They're going to add a different element to what the Saints are trying to do defensively, also, especially at the interior defensive line position with Brian Bresee. And then we know, right, on the offensive side of the football, DP, Chris Olave, man, like the guy is looking like, it's Garrett Wilson. Then it looks like Chris Olave also is going to be one of those ones, like that's how they say, man, one of those ones. He's him. right, out of that 2022 NFL draft class, man. So I think the Saints are locked and loaded. They have playmakers at every level of the football on both sides of the football. So I definitely think it's the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, Keith, I'm going with you there with the Saints as well, man. I think that the Panthers, yes, they got the new shiny toy that is Bryce Young, but what toys does he have in the toy box with him? What other shiny toys are there in Carolina? There's a kind of an old, like Toy Story, the old rusty toy that the kid doesn't play with no more. That's Adam Thielen. That's what he is. Like, he's that older toy that he's got a little bit of life left, a little bit left in him that he can be a solid contributor. But you're hoping for Jonathan Mingo, you're hoping for TMJ, Terrence Marshall Jr. It's a lot of hope. I'm going with the team I absolutely know. I absolutely know that this team is ready to go and they have the players. And yeah, things didn't go the way that the way we wanted, we hoped with Jameis. But you talk about Chris Olave, man, Keith. 72 receptions, 114 targets, over 1,000 yards, averaged over 14 yards per catch last year. Man, week 3, you know what I'm saying? Matter, not even week 3. Like, this is it. He started the season out last year with 3 NFC South opponents. He had 3 for 41 against the Falcons. He had 5 for 80 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then he went 9. He had 9 for 147 versus the Carolina Panthers. And now with Michael Thomas being there, and hopefully he stays healthy the whole season. I think, having A.T. Perry and all the other young receivers that they do have, yeah, man. Alvin Kamara, Kendrick Miller, Jamal Williams, this offensive line, and the key to it all to me is not just Derek Carr. It's his blindside protector, Trevor Penning, who's looked good in the preseason. If he turns that into a full season, the regular season, man, this is going to be a hit, Keith, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have, they got weapons, but they got Baker Mayfield at quarterback, and I just don't know if we know what Baker Mayfield is, but he's shown us what he is and who he is. Like, this is the best offense you can say, like, receiving core he's had. I can attest to that, but it's like, how much better is he going to be? I don't know. And because of that, I'm going with Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. I think they're going to take this division. And I would not be surprised, Keith, if they take it by 2 games, like a 2-game lead.
Yeah, DP, I'll say I'm not sure if this is best receiving core. We forget that he had a prime Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry together. So, and a David Njoku, right? I believe all those guys. And
Nick no, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned. You're right.
Pretty good team. That was a pretty good offensive, offensive skill position, man, offensive personnel. But DP, I agree with you, man. Even with the Falcons, right? I just don't know if there's just going to be enough there. Like, they're just one of those teams y'all are going to have to show me, right? And it's no knock to them. I'm excited. Yeah. They have some young pieces, but I just have to see what's going on before I can actually.
What happens when games get out of, like, what happens when you can phase the run game out of the equation? Yeah. That's going to be the biggest question that they got to answer.
Yep. If you get down by 10, or if it's 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you have to throw the football, or just
down
those
2 scores,
downs, right?
You got to throw.
Every time it's 3rd and 9, right? And you're running the football and the defense knows you're running the football. Can you convert some of those 3rd downs? And I think that's the question. Is this an offense that has to always be on schedule? So that'll be the biggest question with the Atlanta Falcons. DP, let's take it up north, baby. We have the Green Bay Packers, we have the Detroit Lions, right? We have the Chicago Bears, and why I'm missing another team, the Minnesota Vikings. We have those 4 teams. Who is going to win NFC North? It was Kirk Cousins in the Minnesota Vikings last year. The Green Bay Packers missed the playoffs. Guess what? Love is in town now, right? Jordan Love is there. So who is going to win? You have Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears, and Jared Goff with hoping trying to take another step. Who do you have winning the NFC North?
I have the Packers still being at the top. I think, and some people may be like, man, no Aaron Rodgers. You think they're going to win the NFC North? I do. I do think they're going to win the NFC North. I love Justin Jefferson, adding, Jordan Addison to him, having TJ Hawkinson. No Dalvin Cook hurts this offense because, Alexander Mattison has shown some semblance of success as a backup. It's a different ball game when you're the guy that's being game planned for as the starter week in and week out, right? Dalvin Cook was one of the top 5 backs in the league over the past 6 years, man. He's been a baller. So trying to replace that type of production is difficult, Keith.
Yeah, and I think it's understated, right? Because we have the running back conversation. It's like, hey, you can kind of swap those guys out. Like, it's levels to this, right? Like, you can swap out like what the Lions did, right? Jamal Williams and David Montgomery, right? Like that's okay. That's we can swap that out, right? Or you know something of that nature. But when you get into Dalvin Cook, a top 5 running back, and then you don't bring in anybody, you just put the backup there, then that's when I become a little bit concerned, because Dalvin Cook is not just a running back. The guy's the playmaker, right? Like he can shift the field by himself on a play where he wasn't supposed to shift the field, right? Like he's not a guy that you necessarily have to scheme everything open for. And those are the special football players. DP, I'm so close to going with you. I almost want to have a 1A and 1B when it comes to picking. I'm gonna go with the Detroit Lions, but I agree with you that there's a very clear path where the Green Bay Packers could win this, because this is bigger than just Aaron Rodgers being gone. This football team is well-rounded. For the Green Bay Packers, it's a matter of their defense can show up. And I picked the Lions. It's the same thing for the Lions. Defense, they got to show up. They drafted Jack Campbell. So in the middle, in which I'm thinking that he's going to really get developed. My guy, Kelvin Shepard, the linebacker coach over there. I think he's going to do a really good job with him. He did a really good job last year with the linebackers they had. So I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions. And then what they got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson too, right? So hopefully they have a playmaker on the back end. They have safety Kirby Joseph also, who's shown to be an instinctual guy. So I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions, DP. I think they're going to take the North.
I think the Packers defense will finally become what we hope they've become after all these first round picks they've added. I think this is a year that, you know, the iron meets the metal and they strike hot. And I think this defense is going to be a very strong defense in 2023.
Well, we will see, DP. But next up, man, we got to keep this thing going, right? We have to pick the NFC Championship, and then we also have to pick who we think is going to win the Super Bowl. So yesterday we picked our AFC champions, right? And we got to combine that, and now we got to pick the Super Bowl. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? And that's what we have coming up next. So y'all stay tapped in with us.
Guys, trying to buy tickets at the last minute for any of your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, but we all know that it is, right? We know that it's a headache because at the last minute, you're trying to hunt down the best price, competing with other buyers, trying to avoid the scammers and scalpers that's going to rip you off. But let me tell you about Game Time. It is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have flash deals and last-minute tickets. Their tickets are easy to buy and easy to find and buy for every kind of event in your area. They have images of the seat views, and you're going to love the lowest price guarantee that they have. So, guys, listen, forget trying to plan months in advance. You can pick out tickets and find tickets at the last minute. For example, right now, if you'd like, September 18th, if you're in the Charlotte area, you can go to Bank of America Stadium and see the Saints versus the Panthers for $37 on Game Time. $37 on Game Time. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Keith. You know what time it is. Time to pick them NFC champions. And who's going to meet the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl for 2023, Keith? Who you got?
Man, I'm going to go. It's another tough one because I have two teams, but I know I'm going to go with this. And I'm going to say this because their schedule is easier. I think they have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL, and I believe that matters when it comes down to rankings and home field advantage and stuff like that. So I'm going to pick the Saints. I really want to pick the Seahawks, but I do think they're going to have to go to war with the 49ers, and, you know, their schedule is not as easy. So I'm going to pick the Saints, and I'm going to pick the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and then I'm going to pick the Eagles to win again. So for me, the Super Bowl matchup will be the Eagles and the Ravens.
Keith? Simpatico, brother. We're right there. We locked in. You know what I mean? We locked in. I'm picking the Eagles as well, man. I think the Eagles are just the best team in the conference in the entire NFC. Jalen Carter is going to be one of those propellers for them. Like he's going to help get them back there. You know what I mean? And avoid that whole slump. I think he's going to have some big moments late in the season in the playoffs where he just wrecks like he's going to have those GCPs, those game-changing plays. I think he is going to be one of those guys as a rookie that's going to make those game-changing plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm going to have the Eagles and I got the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl as well.
Can we pause on the NFC part though, because we have a team that's lost the Super Bowl, right? returning back to the Super Bowl. And like historically, that doesn't happen, right? It almost happened last year with Joe Burrow and the Kansas City Chiefs, right, in the AFC Championship game, but it didn't. And so I want to add, like, do you have any pause for concern for that? And what's the other team to be looking out for? Because the NFC worries me because I see a lot of solid teams, but is there a team that can just simply get hot and make the same run? And are we saying that this Philadelphia Eagles team is invincible to a slump, right? To any type of slump, or is this more so just the status of the NFC? Like I want to explain that part out because us picking them, right? We are not on the right side of history. We're saying that a team is going to lose the Super Bowl and then return back to the Super Bowl again. So we are not on the right side of history when it comes down to that.
We are clearly stepping out on a limb here, guys. Just like you guys in general, right? Because some people will be like, oh, Lamar Jackson never be able to get there, not with all the talent and stuff like that. So we're stepping on a limb regardless. But the concern I have, Keith, is that they won the conference last year. So every game, what are they going to see? A bullseye on their back. They're going to get the best effort from every single team they face, whether it's a divisional opponent, a conference opponent, or a cross conference opponent. You know what I mean? In terms of AFC opponent as well, they're going to get the best from everybody for all 17, 18 games or whatever it is in the season. So I think they're going to get the best there. And I think if you ask me if there's any team that I believe could get hot, I technically have two. Is your vote for the NFC North, the Lions, right? If their defense plays well, I think that they could get hot. They have one of the best offensive coordinators who will be a head coach more than likely after this season, and Ben Johnson. He's an absolute genius on what he does. And the other team I picked, the Green Bay Packers. I think those two teams can get hot late in the season, right? They have the weapons, and this Green Bay offense, I absolutely love the potential with them. You know what I mean? With, of course, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, but then having Jaden Reed, right? And then those two tight ends, Luke Musgrave, Keith. I think him and Jordan Love are going to have a strong connection. You know what I mean? By the time we get to the midway of the season, I think those two are going to be on the same wavelength, man. And they're going to just be humming. And I think that defense is going to step up to the task. So I think if there's any two teams that could get on the run and potentially threaten the Eagles, I think it's the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking about it, right? And I don't. We talked about the 49ers a little bit, right? But I'm gonna say this: if this thing goes as advertised, they are a dangerous team because they do have the weapons, right? The run game, a full season, a Christian McCaffrey, a defense that's really good. So I'm gonna pick them, obviously, and I didn't pick them to win the division, right? Which it is what it is, right? The Seahawks win 12 games, they win 10 games. The 49ers have been there before, right? Where they don't have to win the division to make a playoff run. They're that mentally tough, and when you get in the playoffs, it's a one-game season every week, right? So I'm gonna pick the 49ers as the wild card team, and then I would have to say the Seahawks again. That's my two teams, the two West Coast teams, and I picked the Saints, right, obviously, to go to the NFC Championship. So that's probably the three teams that I kind of got hovering around there, that if it's not the Philadelphia Eagles, it's just so tough because the NFC is not as loaded, right? So when you're trying to operate with, common sense and use, your past data, right, and you've watched the film and you know what roster is loaded, it's like you can see a clear path for the Philadelphia Eagles to return back to the Super Bowl. But like we said, I don't think we've seen that teams return back to back Super Bowl. So DP, you have the Ravens and the Eagles in the Super Bowl, so do I. Who's winning the Super Bowl?
The Dallas Cowboys aren't going to be happy about this. I'm picking the Eagles. I'm picking the Eagles, man. I want to go with Lamar. I think the big thing, the one question mark I have with this defense is the full talent depth spectrum or conversation in their secondary at the cornerback position. You know what I mean? Where you'll be used to facing Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, but those are divisional opponents. You're accustomed to what they do well, and you face them, right? But going up against A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, two polar opposite type of players at the wide receiver position, Dallas Goedert. It doesn't really matter who's in the backfield for Philly because Jalen Hurts, very similar to Lamar Jackson, is going to make their life so much easier for them. And I think offensive line-wise, they have the best offensive line that the Ravens would have seen, and I think they have the best defensive line group that the Ravens would have seen. So I think it'll be a close game, but I'm taking Philly. I want to give it to my guy, Action Jackson. But I got to give it to Jalen Hurts, man. I think they can't go 0-2. They can't go 0-2 back to back, baby. I think if they get back there, they're gonna pull it off.
Yeah, DP, I'm torn behind this, right? Because for everything we just explained about a team not making it back to the Super Bowl, but let alone win it, right? So I'm like, okay, am I going all the way off the limit? Then the other side of that is that them going against Lamar Jackson, will they lose twice in the Super Bowl? Like, you know what I'm saying? Being that team that lose back-to-back years. And then also I'll be a little bit critical, right? Be honest about this. Lamar Jackson hasn't necessarily played great in big games, right? And so that's something that I still just want to see, right? I know what Jalen Hurts is going to pull out of himself mentally and show up in a big time game, right? I just want to see Lamar Jackson do. And we could say in the past that it hasn't all been his fault, but just like we've seen with Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl and throughout the playoffs, sometimes even if it's not your fault, like like your mom used to tell you when you was younger, right? And be like, hey, clean that up. And your response was, I didn't put that there. And then what she said, it don't matter, right? Like that was their competition. It don't matter. Pick it up. And you still had to pick it up. So I said all that to say I'm stuck, DP. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with Philly. I think so. I think Philly gonna get the job done. But I almost want to pick Lamar Jackson. I'm gonna stick with Philly. I'm gonna stick with Philly. You know what? I'm switching it, DP. Hold on, press pause. I'm switching it. I'm going with Lamar Jackson. I'm going with the Ravens. I'm going with the Ravens. Going with the Ravens. All right. That lets you know how torn I am between the two.
Yeah.
I flip-flop both times. So if I don't have a favorite. I think they're both extremely talented football teams. I think they're versatile. I think they're well-rounded on both sides of the football, right? So I can see either team honestly winning. I think it's a coin flip once we get to the Super Bowl.
100%, Keith. So you got the Ravens. I got the Eagles, and let's see if that comes to fruition when we get to was it February? Yeah, the beginning of February. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes, man. But look, that wraps up another episode of Locked On NFL Draft with your dynamic duo, man. There we have it, man. We completed it. The AFC playoff picture, the NFC playoff picture, the Super Bowl picture, and the Super Bowl winners, man. We went opposite sides, right? DP went Philadelphia Eagles. I went Baltimore Ravens. And I am not that confident in what I just did. But, man, like we said, man, thank you for tapping in with us. Shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in. Tomorrow, NFL is here. Yes, we're talking about the first game of the season, right? You have Patrick Mahomes. You have the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff, man. Is the Detroit Lions going to start this thing off right? Where's Patrick Mahomes going to start his 2023 NFL MVP campaign, right? What is he going to do out there? We're going to get into everything, man. They're missing their big guy up front, right? They have to figure out how they're going to replace him, Chris Jones. When is he going to come back? Is it going to be week 8? But we're going to discuss all of that tomorrow on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Thank you for tapping in with us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, as always, shout out to our everydayers. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Thank you for being our family, but it's all like we just said. Thank you for being the everydayers. In terms of Twitter, you can find and follow us there. Me, Damian Parson, DP_NFL, Keith Sanchez at The Talent Code. Talk to us because we do talk back. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.